is Joy Harrington. I am your host. So, we're in Indiana. We've been traveling we'll be here for 2 weeks. And we came out here to see some friends. And if you've been watching my Instagram stories, you've been observing they have this amazing house on like 40 acres that has woods, that has all these beautiful walking trails. They have a pond that you can fish in, that you can do motor boats in. Not like big motor boats, but like the little remote control ones. But you could also do like jet skis and things like that. They've got ATVs, they've got a razor. The husband has his pilot license and he has his own plane and his own helicopter. And so it's been like quite an adventure being here as a family. Their kids are grown. They have 5 kids. Their kids are grown and they've just been like loving on our family and doing all kinds of fun adventures. So there's a pickleball court outside and TK was like, all right, Peter, let's get up and do pickleball in the morning. I've got guys coming over. And so they were up in the morning doing pickleball. And then he took him shooting one morning. And then we went to dinner at the country club. And then he literally got his plane and they flew our family up to Michigan, rented the pontoon boat. We went out on Lake Michigan all day. We rowed the boat. When we got there, it was like lunchtime. So we got in the boat and we rowed over to a restaurant. And then we ate, and then we got back on the boat. We went swimming for a little bit, and we drove around. Then we got to walk around Michigan and get some dinner, and then we flew back home. And he flew us on his plane. And it's been just like such a beautiful gift to receive, right? Being around people that just want to love on you and they want to give to you and they just want to like bless you in the ways that they've been blessed and just share with you. But it's also been so cool to observe because these people are clearly at a level of financial wealth that we're not at yet. And I know they're entrepreneurs. We know their story. I know how they've built their wealth. And he's had a super successful company that he sold. And now he's doing another one, right? She's been a super successful network marketer before, right? So I know what they've done as far as building their wealth goes, but they're obviously like ahead of us, right? We haven't sold our company yet. I'm putting that out there that's going to come someday. But Peter is building his company right now, right? So we're not in the same position, but it's been amazing to observe and to just learn from them as people that are a place that I want to go, right? I always want to learn from people that have done what I want to do, as opposed to learning from someone that hasn't done what I want to do. And so I wrote down these things that I've observed while we're here about people that are successful in building wealth, not just income or disposable income, but like true wealth. And I think there's a pretty big difference there. I know what it's like to have disposable income and spend it. And then you have nothing in the bank account, you have nothing in savings, and you're not investing anything, which means you can't actually like buy a house or do things like that, right? I've been that person before. And Peter and I changed a lot in our approach with our finances in the last like year and a half. And we did a podcast about that at the beginning of this year and kind of just like how we moved into our investment property and why we did and the things that we're starting to build with our income as opposed to living on our income, right? But you can tell when someone has actual wealth as opposed to disposable income. And someone that has wealth, that means they're not just living on their income that comes in every single month. It means that they have multiple income streams. It means they have investment accounts. It means that there's not this, okay, it's the beginning of month. We have money. We can go to the grocery store. Now it's the end of the month and we don't have any money, so we can't go to the grocery store. There's none of that, right? It's a constant in their life. That's what it is. It's a constant in their life. And it's not this up and down of feast or famine. It's got consistency to it, and it's being able to buy things that you want when you want to, and you don't have to wait for payday. Like that in my mind is like the sign of a wealthy person is you can buy what you want when you want to, and you don't have to wait for payday. And it also isn't going to be this huge draw on your income. Okay. So that's one way of looking at wealth. And that's just what I'm thinking of off the top of my head. But these are 5 things that I've observed being around these amazing people who've been giving to our family. And I want to share them today because I think they're a little bit more unconventional than like, if you want to go listen to like, here's actual 5 steps to building wealth, like a lot of people are teaching about. You're going to find like an X, Y, and Z. But I came up with like different things just by observing them. So, number one, they're open to ideas, suggestions, being corrected, or even like disagreed with. I've noticed people that are at a certain level are very open. They're very curious. They're always interested. They're always wanting to learn. They're not offended when people want to disagree or have a different idea or something like that. Like they are the quickest people to be like, oh, you said that's a good product. Then yeah, I'll try it. Or you said that that's a good connection. Yeah, I want to meet them. Right. Like they're the first people to being open to receive suggestions or ideas. And in fact, they will ask people, like being around them, they've even been interested in us and what we think and what our feedback is. And I'm like, we're not even where you guys are at. But that's because wealthy, successful people understand that other people have value and other people can help you get where you want to go, even if they're not in the same position as you. Number two, they ask and surround themselves with others who have answers to things outside their expertise. So this has been something that's really cool to see is they don't ever look to themselves to be like the answer or the expert in everything. In fact, they will have the answer or be the expert in a very few things. I've been very struck by this. They will I was thinking about how the other night their daughter came over and she was like having this issue with her business that she's building. And Jill, my friend, was like, hey, well, tell Joy and Peter about it and get like their advice. And she just like, and then like another person came over and she was like, hey, Joy and Peter should be part of this conversation. You should get their advice because like they've done this or blah, 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 right? Or like trying to bring other people in to help them and to have answers. They never are like, oh, well, I'll just tell you what to do, or I'll just do this. I mean, yes, there's a time and a place for that. And they obviously do like have an input and an opinion, but they are the first people to be like, I'm not the expert in this and somebody else is. And that makes sense because you have to be in order to scale to a certain degree. It cannot just be you doing everything. You'll burn yourself out. You won't be able to go as far when you're the person having to come up with all of the answers. So it's just been really cool to see like they never expect that of themselves to be the person that has all the answers, and they're very open to other people giving that input. And in fact, they're looking for it and they're bringing it in and kind of like offloading that off of their plate. So March 2020, I remember going to my doctor and saying, I think something's wrong with me. Like I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling tired, all of these things. And she looked at me and said, how's your libido? And it hit me in that moment. I was like, non-existent. Like what? I didn't even realize that until you're asking me right now. And I realized it had been that way for a little while. And while she was a doctor and thought it was all physical things and related to physical symptoms, it would take me another year and a half before I would realize that a lot of that was due to resentment that I was holding on to in our marriage. So there was resentment stored within my body from a lot of different times of me sweeping things under the rug or not saying how I actually felt or not verbalizing what I needed or just taking it and taking it and taking it until I would like pop, right? And so because of that, I didn't actually deal with things that I wasn't okay with, things that I felt overlooked by, different things like that. And so I had stored resentment in my body. And stored resentment in your body is just stale anger that was never moved through. And it's really just a sign to you of things about yourself, things that you wanted that you didn't ask for, things that you weren't okay with, that you didn't say that you weren't okay with, and you let your boundaries get crossed, right? It's really insight into you, but it can physically take a toll on you if you don't process that anger through and literally physically move it through your body. So it wasn't until I worked with a coach who started working with my physical body and doing a lot of somatic healing through breath work, and other somatic practices, which just means you're working with the body, to really release that anger, that I began to really soften and open back up to my husband and feel like I desired to be seen even in making love. Like there had been walls up for me, even in just being seen when we were doing that, right? And really making that emotional connection. And so I created the resentment trap for women to help them clear resentment out of their bodies because a lot of women resonated when I shared that I was struggling with that. A lot of other women said, oh my gosh, me too, and really wanted help with releasing resentment from their body. So I created a course. It's 5 modules. It really gets into your body and helps you release and do everything that I did to bring down those walls, to create desire again, to create intimacy again, to let that heaviness go, because resentment can feel very heavy. It can like really weigh you down, and stored emotions in your body can very much weigh you down. So most people deal with it by going to a therapist, which is a great start. But the problem is their problem isn't their head up. Their problem is their head down, right? It's all in their body. And so if you're just doing talk therapy, you're talking about it, but you're not actually releasing from your body. So that's what the resentment trap is all about. It's going to help you identify your patterns. It's going to help you create new stories. I teach the whole way your brain works and how breaking patterns works and how to release it, but also create a different story moving forward so that this doesn't keep happening over and over and over again, and you keep getting stuck in it over and over and over again. And I have a code. If you pay in full, you get $111 off the price. The link is in the show notes. You can literally scroll down while listening to this episode. You can see the coupon code. It works. If you're paying in full, you get $111 off the price. The course is yours for life. You can watch these videos as many times as you want to. You can do the breathwork session as many times as you want to. I definitely recommend doing it more than once. I've done a lot of breathwork in my time. So the beautiful thing is you get to keep going back to it over and over and over again. And the principles, because they are lifelong, will aid you even as you keep digging through these layers. The principles will help you just keep going deeper with that. They're also amazing for teaching your children so that your children can start processing these emotions through their body too. I already teach my kids how to start processing things through their body. So the resentment trap is below in the show notes. Would love to see you in the course. It's available for you, and you self-paced, so you can watch it on your own time. There's homework after each one, but it's not like crazy in depth. It's just practices and tools for your toolbox that are going to let you move forward the rest of your life, free from this being a cycle that you live in. All right. Would love to see you in the course. Number 3, they expect good. They kind of have like glass half full eyes is what I call it. I've said that before on this show. They have good attitudes. They expect good. They wake up cheerful, right? Like they're not people that are waking up with an Eeyore complex or constantly seeing the hard or seeing the negative, right? They just have a more positive outlook in general. And it's not because they're sitting here trying to paint the sky or silver line the clouds, like all the time, but it's because they genuinely believe that good is happening and coming to them, right? And what we believe is what we look for evidence for. Number 4, they treat others very kindly and graciously. They are like the most appreciative, most thankful. Like when we went to dinner with them a couple of times, I've noticed this now where like something happened or something was said, not even said like rudely, but I'm trying to remember what it was. I think this person, this waiter that was waiting on us was like a little bit annoyed, right? And so I was getting annoyed, and I noticed it didn't even faze them. They were so kind to him, and they were still so respectful and like so appreciative and like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And wow, like we so appreciate you. Right. And here I was about to be like rude, right? Back to the person. I'm like, if you're rude to me, I'm gonna be rude to you. But I have noticed, and this is not just true of them. I've been around other people that are very successful, wealthy. I'm thinking of our mentor, Chris Harder. He is the same way. If you want to learn from a wealthy, successful person, go out to a restaurant and have a meal with them and watch how they treat the staff, watch how they treat you, watch like how they treat people that interact with them, and you will learn so much. Number 5, they don't place blame. There is a theme with people that are financially where I want to be, at least. And it is that it's not like they even have to take responsibility for everything in their life, but they aren't going around placing blame like, oh, well, that person did this to me, or it was that person's fault, or like it was this person's fault, or like this happened to me and it was because of that, right? Like they are not constantly putting that power outside of themselves in ways that are really easy to do. And it's very interesting to observe that in them because they will tell you what happened and they might be even justified in the story in things that have happened to them, but they're in the telling of the story, not being like, oh, well, I'm the victim and it was because of this person or it's that thing's fault or whatever it is. They're not the victim in their life. They're not the victim in things that happened to them. They're not saying that they were wronged, that other people did things to them, it was other people's fault. Like they don't even use that kind of language. They're not like it was that person's fault. They don't place blame. And it's just been really, really cool to be around people that think differently, that hold themselves differently, that are amazing in who they are. And it's not a surprise that they have the success and they have the wealth because the two go hand in hand. We always want to know, like, how do we get the outcome? How do we get the thing? And remember, this is something I remind myself about. The external is always, always, always a reflection of the internal and who we are, right? Like who we are, how we be, how we act, how we treat other people, the stories we tell ourselves, the way we're viewing things, all of that is what shapes the external. We're constantly shaping our external reality with our internal. And so the fastest way to changing your external reality, and maybe that's not even like you want a really big home or things like that, but maybe you do want to change and have income that's regularly coming in that you don't have to stress about. You don't have to worry about how you're going to pay your bills every single month, right? You do want a certain sort of achievable lifestyle. Okay, who are you being that's going to be that person that has that? The question first is always, who is that version of you that has that? And how are they different than who you are right now? Who do you need to be in order to have that? And this is where people get tripped up. And this used to be me too. They're like, well, if I have to be someone different and I have to like pretend to be this person, that feels fake. Well, it's not pretending if you know that that's who you actually want to be, right? It's called, you have to practice putting on different ways of thinking, different ways of interacting, different ways of holding yourself in a setting in order to change patterns that have been who you are. Because remember, who you have been isn't necessarily more authentically you. It's just habitual. You've learned it. It's been patterns that you've carried for probably years. And so is that quote unquote more real? Or is that just more comfortable, more familiar, something that you've done for longer? It's going to feel different when you are consciously trying to change yourself and change internally in order to shift externally. It's always going to feel different and it's going to feel awkward at first and it's going to feel weird and it's going to feel, that's just because it's different. You haven't been that person before. You haven't thought that way before. But new doesn't mean fake. New doesn't mean inauthentic. New doesn't mean it's not the real you. It means it's different, and that's good. You're wanting to be different. You're wanting to let go of the old. So lean into that. Don't buy the story of, ooh, well, now you're being fake or you're not being authentic or this isn't the real you. I used to buy into that story, but it's not true. The real me is the me that I'm choosing to be. The real me is the me that I want to be, that I know I want to be, that I get to step into being. I get to decide who the real me is. And every day I get to get up and become a little bit better. We all do. We all get to grow. So those are my 5 steps for achieving wealth and becoming the person who attracts that, becoming the person who that's a byproduct of who you are. Remember, it always is a byproduct of who you are. Okay. I love you. I'll see you back on the show next week. See you then.